Battle Royale, released in 1999, is a gritty, alternative fiction novel centered around the 42 students of Shiroiya Junior High School, who were selected to participate in the Battle Experiment numbered 68 program. This program puts these students onto an island and encourages them to kill each other until only one remains and is granted freedom. The story is mostly focused on the main characters of Shuya Narahara, Noriko Nakagawa, and Shogo Kawada, as they attempt to survive the game together and escape this totalitarian Japan that has forced them into this situation. It is a gruesome text with vivid descriptions of characters' emotions, feelings, and experiences throughout the program. And honestly, it is a brilliantly engaging, exciting, and emotional book that, if you get the chance, is well worth reading. Battle Royale was a bestseller in Japan, the original text selling over 1 million copies, and was soon adapted into a manga and a movie, where the text became more known internationally. Surprisingly, Suzanne Collins was not aware of the text when she wrote The Hunger Games in 2008, which follows a similar plot beats. In a dystopic future, America is split into 12 districts in the upper class. Due to a failed revolution against the upper class, annually the 12 districts must offer a boy and a girl between 12 and 18 to participate in the Hunger Games. Those selected must gain the favor of those in the upper class and fight to the death until one remains. The Hunger Games also became a bestseller, selling 26 million copies over 3 novels, and was adapted into movies, which were also very popular, the first film being the 9th highest grossing film of 2012. However, in 2010, a somewhat small Japanese video game studio called Spike Chunsoft released a new visual novel game titled Danganronpa Trigger Happy Havoc, and went on to release 2 sequels, the most relevant to this discussion being Danganronpa V3 Killing Harmony. The plot was centered around 16 high school students who wake up to find themselves locked up within the Ultimate Academy for Gifted Juveniles, and then told to escape, they must commit a murder without being caught. Danganronpa, compared to its similar text listed, was not as much of a phenomenal success, selling as a series over 930,000 units, most of which was in Japan. These 3 texts all share a similar concept of high school students or teenagers being forced into a program or a game where they must kill each other, but each of the subsequent texts added or changed the concept slightly. These 3 texts, despite the similarities in plots, are somewhat different under the scope of analysis, and this is primarily affected by context. These 3 texts were written over 3 decades and in different continents, so the context that inspired the writer to tell their story will be different. However, there is also an overarching context of postmodernity. All of these texts were written in postmodern context, and whether by intention or subconsciously, they display aspects of postmodernity in their writing and in their themes, and it can be argued that these texts incorporated more postmodern theories and ideas into themselves the later they were written, with Danganronpa V3 arguably being the most reflective of postmodernity. But what is postmodernism? Postmodernism can be described as an international paradigm shift, with the previous ideology, modernism, and the meta-narratives of society such as science, religion, and different worldviews were rejected, and from that formed postmodernism. Postmodernism is a massively dense concept, and the discussion of whether we are still postmodern or if we have moved on to a post-postmodern world is evident of such. The main key concepts and techniques that I will be discussing in relation to postmodernism include surreal and unrealistic elements, technology's rapid evolution, hyperrealism, mass media, and how postmodernism was a projection of modernism. Koshun Takami's alternate history novel Battle Royale takes place in an Eastern society subservient to its government. Koshun's postmodern context shaped his story's ending significantly, to the point where it almost contradicts the rest of the story. Battle Royale takes place in an alternate history setting where Japan is formed into the Republic of Greater East Asia. As the characters discuss in the story, the society has evolved into what is dubbed as successful fascism. Successful fascism is the theory that everyone within the society of the Republic of Greater East Asia has no reason to rebel against their government, as the country is so prosperous and the government is so overbearing that the society found that resistance would only lead to a swift death, so it was better to do nothing. Shogo, one of the main characters, goes into more detail, saying, "Anyone who showed the slightest bit of resistance to the government was immediately discarded, and the government continued to cast an intimidating shadow over the lives of everyone who had no other choice but to obey its policies, and who found consolation only in the small things life had to offer." With this kind of success and this high standard of living, even the people themselves are afraid of changing the system. They aren't willing to make a few sacrifices, even if there may be a few little problems, and overthrowing the government will be out of the question. Even if everyone were against it, nobody could say it out loud. That's why nothing changes. This collection of quotes paints a very clear picture of the world of Battle Royale. A subservient society who won't speak out against anything the government does in fear of retaliation, and because of the prosperous nature of the country. Successful fascism is the only theory presented in the story, and seems synonymously believed by most of the characters, hence it is safe to say that this is how the country operates, especially as there is no other opposition to the concept anywhere else in the story. In establishing its definition, it's clear how our main characters defying it is unrealistic. It is very clear throughout the entire story that trying to defy the government and escape is impossible, yet our main characters hold on to this belief. They hope to be able to game the system and hopefully escape elsewhere. This rejection of the program, the rebellion against the government, it's completely unrealistic, yet the story ends on a simplistic note, the characters having escaped and claiming they will continue to run until they win. Their escape, in combination with the pre-established idea of successful fascism, embodies two things: the central theme of rebellion, which will be explored throughout all of the text, and the unrealistic or surreal nature of a postmodernist text. Out of the three texts I looked at, Battle Royale was the most realistic. While being a sort of alternative history novel or speculative fiction piece, it is the most grounded in reality out of the three texts, but as previously mentioned, its ending doesn't reflect this. While it makes sense and was somewhat foreshadowed at the beginning of the story, the ending contradicts everything else that the story presented. Every suggestion of an escape is either shot down figuratively or literally, yet the main characters do so. This reflects the concept of postmodernism, where more surreal and non-realistic elements are presented throughout text. This was brought on because of the complete rejection of science and religion as truthful concepts, meta-narratives dictating life, with all that was left being a confusing, insane world after the rejection of modernism's values. This story reflects this in the fact that despite its world within a country that operates under successful fascism, and what the story was telling and showing us over its reading time, that the rejection of the government is possible. And no, I am not saying every story that ends with a happy ending, or even a poorly constructed happy ending, is postmodernistic. What I am saying is that this writer may have subconsciously added these non-realistic elements into his story because of his context. Now that the boring Japanese book is done, we can finally get on to the important text of the hour. Forget books! We have cinema! Suzanne Collins' dystopian novel, The Hunger Games, reflects Western entertainment and technology, and comments on its dangerous aspects within a different context. The Hunger Games, as stated before, takes place in a dystopian society where the upper class rules over 12 districts, similar to states, and forces each one of those to send in a boy and a girl to participate in the Hunger Games annually. When selected, these participants travel around the capital, show off their skills, and talk of something similar to late-night television to gain the favor of those in the capital, and then are thrown into the games. I won't explain this story at the same length of Battle Royale simply because of this text's worldwide acknowledgement, and at this point I would be repeating information you already know. What's interesting about the Hunger Games is its usage of technology in mass media. Reality television, the closest comparison we have to the events of the Hunger Games, isn't new, supposedly beginning in the 1940s, but that portrayed within the Hunger Games is a 21st century representation of the genre. What the Hunger Game does, in its setting, is show a world where technology is used differently. While similar to our world, its use is to repress the populace and entertain the capital, rather than to simply entertain. The games themselves are a deterrent, a reminder to never rebel against the capital again, but by using technology they are able to achieve this nationally. This is purely based on Suzanne's postmodern context. While oppression is something done regardless of technology, what technology is offered is new and better ways to do such, and the incorporation of a reality TV-like aspect to these games is a reflection of our world's entertainment. the need to be likable, the need to be sociable with others, to conform to what they want. The Hunger Games display this need for others to like us, but in a more severe situation. Quotes like,
when you're in the middle of the games, and you're starving or freezing, some water, a knife, or even some matches can mean the difference between life and death. And those things only come from sponsors. And to get sponsors, you have to make people like you. Make sure they remember you.
comment on our world's entertainment and the way we interact with others, and this is fundamentally based on our technology and our postmodern context. The Hunger Games simply represents this need in a different context, so we may examine it from a different perspective and relate it to our own situation. ドナルドの噂
もしもし、ドナルドです。
ドナルドって喋るの
Kazutaka Kodaka's Danganronpa V3 encompasses hyperrealism, Japan's obsession with anime, and it also embodies the rejection of modernism. Anime isn't something new, but its cultural relevance and international recognition is a 21st century event, and these can be both seen in Danganronpa. While the other two texts covered today tackled somewhat realistic events with realistic people, Danganronpa V3 is the complete opposite. Each character has a particular talent in which they are deemed the ultimate in, each with hyperbolic personalities and body proportions, and some of their motivations are completely insane or unthinkable in reality. One character is literally the Prime Minister of Japan, while also being the ultimate maid. This is not a new revelation concerning Danganronpa. In fact, the story comments on this as,
"But boring everyday characters have no right to be in Danganronpa."
This, coupled with the surreal events of the game and its art style, displayed the numerous influences modern-day Japan had on Kodaka. Hyperrealism in a postmodern context is consciousness having trouble distinguishing reality from fiction. This is inherent in Danganronpa V3, as the main characters of the story are both fictional and real. While their physical bodies are real, their personalities, emotions, and actions are all fiction written by someone else.
Everything in this world has a writing credit.
Even if your body is real, your identities, personalities, talents, and past are all fiction.
This mix of fictional elements into reality is dubbed Ultimate Real Fiction, which is what Danganronpa as a series evolved into over time. However, the main characters defy their fictional existence.
Even if this is fiction, even if we're all fictional, the pain in my heart is real.
And
You don't believe in the power of fiction?
both accept the fact that they're both fictional and real, and then
Our friends who died gave us their love, and we changed because of that. If we can inspire change in others, then that love will live on. That love will tear down the wall between fiction and reality, and it will live on forever.
goes on to both define what is real and fiction, and then claim that their fiction will change reality. This ends up with them sacrificing their fictional lives to change the way the world sees Danganronpa, and this is extremely hyper-realistic. Syndican may have sacrificed himself, but he didn't do that with the belief that he would end the French Revolution. Danganronpa V3's main cast do this, and literally break through to the other world, but I'll get to that. And this is the exact fulfillment of what hyper-realism is. All of these texts share a theme of rebellion, and it's emblematic of postmodernism's rejection of modernism. Battle Royale is a message of hope, an act of rebellion that's supposed to stay with the audience. The Hunger Games is a display of hope for a people oppressed for generations, and Danganronpa V3 is the embodiment of the rejection of modernism. Battle Royale's ending is one that is somewhat inconclusive. While the story does wrap up and tells us where the main characters are headed, their end goal is obscured. While suggestions are brought up throughout the entire story, the ending doesn't say whether these are still the goals of our main characters. It simply states that they will never stop running until they win. This ending is, rather than narratively focused, more about communicating to the reader its message. Now, once again, 2 students remaining, but of course, they're part of you now. This isn't a statement about the characters' lives after they escape. This is a message to the reader that these characters are a part of them, and this is intentional. Battle Royale and its ending tells us that no matter what situation we're in, no matter how oppressive, no matter how hard it seems to escape, that it is possible. Rebellion against what is wrong is possible, and is the right choice. The story doesn't say what the characters are going to do because it doesn't have the answers itself, and it doesn't know the reader's context, but it encourages them to be able to rebel, even under an extreme circumstance such as success or fascism. Battle Royale sowed the seed of rebellion in all of these texts, and was an encouragement piece to those going through hard times, that these characters who escaped are a part of you now. The Hunger Games ending is similar to Battle Royale, but its purpose is different. The Hunger Games ending is a display, something to be shown to people all around its and our world, to inspire hope. President Snow, earlier in the movie, comments on the importance of hope for the games.
Why do you think we have a winner? Hope. It is the only thing stronger than fear. A little hope is effective. A lot of hope is dangerous.
This hope inspires those within it to kill and deter those watching from rebelling. Katniss's and Peter's survival of the games together is a manipulation of the audience watching and a display of hope to inspire the districts to action. The audience demands a winner, outlined by the quote,
"One of us has to die, they have to have their victor."
But the suicidal act that threatens this forces the hand of the capital. The necessity of a victor would be defied if no one won the games, and those in charge must conform to the majority. In the end, both Peter and Katniss survived, rebelling against the rules enforced onto them. This act of rebellion is broadcast across the districts and inspires hope because they were able to rebel against the capital. This hope, in the later books, turns into another revolution against the capital, but it can all be traced back to this moment of defiance. Danganronpa V3 ends its story with the main characters destroying the world of Danganronpa. This is a dramatic difference between the other 2 texts, but is justified in its anime setting and context of ultimate real fiction.
Trapped in a fictional Danganronpa-inspired world and forced to play the killing game. That is what the world desired from you.
This makes it very clear that the world outside of Danganronpa desired the killing game.
Viewers flock to see your despair.
They watch, knowing that they shouldn't, just to revel in the depravity of it all. That depravity is the appeal of death games. It's the appeal of this very killing game. It's the appeal of Danganronpa itself!
The society of the outside world is so devoid of such despair to the point where they created Danganronpa so they could connect with these fictional characters, yet they also desire the opposite, hope.
Even if it's fiction, everyone wants to feel hope. It gives them courage. And this killing game continues because we keep giving them the hope they want. While they ignore all the tragedies that we had to suffer to get there. Cause hope wins that the killing never stops. It's what the people want. They want hope to win. They want the happy ending.
As stated, the world desires both hope and despair because they avoid such things and are fine with ignoring the tragedy to experience these emotions. So it's interesting when Suichi, the main protagonist, decides to defy both.
If this ends without a single vote being cast for hope or despair, the audience would hate it. They'd never accept an ending like that. So I abstain. I refuse to give the outside world the ending it wants. I won't vote for Kibo or Tsumugi. I reject both hope and despair.
Despite their existence being fictional, the characters of Danganronpa decide that they won't give the world what they desire, and
To win this killing game and end it forever, we will reject Danganronpa!
in this context, Danganronpa is literally their world.
The only place we fictional characters can live is in this fictional world. Only in this world. Only in Danganronpa.
Yet they decide to destroy it, sacrificing their lives in the process to end the tragedy that is the killing game. This is an extreme act of rebellion, and is emblematic of postmodernism. Postmodernism in itself is a rejection of the beliefs in modernism, an international paradigm, to reject everything that they knew to be true. Science and religion couldn't save them from 2 world wars, so maybe it wasn't the real truth. And once the internet came, information became so widespread that every opinion had its platform. Danganronpa V3 tells us a story of fictional characters who destroy their own world, their perception of reality to make the outside world a better place, rejecting the truth that their existence is pointless.
This is fiction. There's no greater meaning. No greater meaning to death. No greater meaning to life.
This ending changes the series of Danganronpa as a whole, and is purely postmodernistic in its values.